Thank you so much, Mustafa Chike-Obi, for joining us on the show today. Well, first of all, maybe we should just start with that and take a step back before we come to the series of allegations that I think are in this report. Why did we need AMCON in the first place? I think a lot of people forget the state that the banking sector was in before AMCON came to the fore.
Yes, AMCON was necessary. The state of the banking system was really hanging over a cliff.
Right.
And it's easy now, a year and a half later, where the banking system has been stabilized now, to throw rocks at it. But at that time, if AMCON had not been operational, I believe that the banking system would have collapsed in Nigeria.
Right. So clearly, AMCON has come in. You have bought a huge portfolio of non-performing loans. I'll get to that in a little bit. But first of all, let's talk about some of these allegations. Clearly, this is out of a series of investigations into the near collapse of Nigeria's capital market. Many people are coming to question the reason why we needed AMCON in the first place. And of course, some of your activities, they are citing issues relating to transparency, etc. First of all, let's get your take, first of all, on allegations around, particularly Union Bank, non-disclosure of losses as a result of a letter dated 17th November 2011 that I think was presented also to this committee. First of all, let's talk about that.
Well, the Union Bank transaction is a phantom. In 2005, Union Bank applied to the Securities and Exchange Commission for a public offering, the purpose of which was to capitalize a bank they were trying to open up in London. Due to a number of delays in the process, Union Bank went ahead and capitalized, I understand, the bank with working capital. When the issue was finally approved in 2007, they then used the proceeds of the public offering to replace the working capital. So there's no missing money.
Right.
The only infraction is that when you do a public offering, you give a purpose for which the public offering was meant to be. And in this case, Union Bank used the proceeds of the public offering for working capital as opposed to the purpose stated in the prospectus. An offense. They were supposed to amend the prospectus. Now, this occurred in 2005, 2007. It was investigated, not by the SEC at the time, but by SEC 2010, and the error was found in the purpose of the public offer. Everybody knows where the money went. So all this
happened before AMCON even
This happened before AMCON.
Into
this
play.
Happened before the GMD of Union Bank, Mrs. Oshibodu. This happened before the DG of SEC, Arumote. The three people that were castigated in their report are the people who tried to fix the problem. And I think it's curious that the people who actually were there when this problem occurred were not mentioned in the report. It suggests an agenda. And that's what saddens me about the tone, the direction, and the whole report. You call it an investigation. I appeared before the Capital Markets, this committee, for 1 hour in a public hearing in which they asked me a number of questions that were completely extraneous to the capital markets. And based on that 1 hour presentation, or 1 hour appearance, they made these wild, irresponsible allegations.
Okay, one allegation that they pointed out was with respect to the three nationalized banks, that's Spring Bank, Bank PHP, and AfriBank. And they stepped back and they talked about the companies incorporated before the bridge banks were formed. And of course, we now have Enterprise Bank and Main Street Bank and Keystone Bank. Speak to that.
Without boring your audience, let me say that AMCON's role in this matter was when the banks had been bridged, AMCON was approached to capitalize them. So the process of the bridging of the banks, which were very lawful, and I don't want to go into detail because NDIC can speak for itself, CBN can speak for itself. But AMCON was approached to capitalize these bridge banks that were severely capital deficient. AMCON, in pursuance of its mandate and the law, capitalized those banks and now owns 100% of those banks. And those banks are now about the process of selling the banks, as you know, is starting. So if they want to criticize the process, I don't see how they can criticize AMCON's role in the process. All we did was capitalize banks and hold them until we can sell them. The issue of whether the bank should have been bridged or not bridged, whether licenses should have been withdrawn or not withdrawn, completely lawful acts.
But really, those I think they should take up with the
Those are things they should take up with NDIC.
Perhaps.
And AMCON had nothing to do with it. AMCON is not a regulator. So AMCON had no real part in those actions.
All right, so tell me this. I mean, some people say those responsible for the financial problems have been effectively bailed out with AMCON coming to the fore. You've brought up a huge portfolio of non-performing loans from the banks, and some say that, for instance, that is coming at a cost to the people. You know, the taxpayers are paying or will have to pay for this at some point.
The taxpayers will not pay for the bailout. The people paying for the bailout is the banks. The banking industry has agreed to contribute enough money to a single fund to make sure that AMCON is fully funded. And based on the assumptions you look at, it will happen between 8 and 13 years. In the worst case, 13 years. In the best case, 8 years. So taxpayers are never paying for AMCON. The sum total of taxpayers' money expended by AMCON today is 10 billion naira.
Which was used to capitalize AMCON
according to the law.
Right.
The law specified 10 billion of capital. So the issue of whether AMCON had capital that was too little or too much had nothing to do with anything except what the law said.
Okay, we can only go into so much in a short interview, but 3.5 trillion in zero coupon bonds have been issued in exchange for non-performing loans. There is some concern about how that is going to impact the broader financial markets. We know over 1 trillion in loans, or rather 1 trillion in bonds are maturing next year. That's still a concern for investors. What do you say to investors right now?
I say to investors that the refinancing of AMCON bonds is a well thought out process. It's staggered over a year. We're aware of the maturity schedule. We've been engaging foreign investors. We've received a tremendous amount of interest for refinancing those bonds. We are not casual about it, but we've put in everything in place to make sure those bonds are well
But to what extent does the higher interest rate environment we're seeing today impact that transaction? Because clearly you've modeled what to expect in terms of, you've probably modeled the environment as well.
Our modeling has taken into account high interest rates and low interest rates. But let me say, even with the high interest rates, our model is still intact. If low interest went lower, it would make things easier for us. But we're using the current environment. But Wole, let me talk about this irresponsible statement about AMCON being a time bomb. I think it is very sad that our National Assembly, which created AMCON would never have existed without the National Assembly. And I'm eternally grateful for National Assembly for their wisdom in creating AMCON. That a committee of the House of Representatives would even make such an irresponsible statement. Even if they really believe that to be the case, the correct thing to do as Nigerians is to approach the authorities and say, look, we think there's a problem here. What do we do about it? I've had many international investors who are 80% or 70% of our capital markets call me concerned about that statement. The statement, first of all, is false. It is not factual. It is not based on anything real. And it is very irresponsible. So it saddens me. And I hope that the majority of the National Assembly that created this child that we can all be proud of, AMCON, will take credit in what AMCON has done, take credit in a solid financial system, and not allow a small committee to scare off foreign investors at a time when Nigeria needs foreign investors very much.
Right.
And my comment to foreign investors, please call us. We'll explain all the facts about AMCON, and there's nothing to worry about. AMCON is very solid.
Strong allegations in this report, and fortunately we can't get through everything today, but thank you very much for joining us.